If there is to be art, if there is to be any aesthetic doing and seeing, one physiological condition is indispensable: ecstasy. Ecstasy or frenzy must first have enhanced the excitability of the whole machine, else there is no art. Nietzsche, Twilight of Idols. So there's a wide chasm of difference between creating art and observing art. You see, you're probably on your way to work right now or sitting in your armchair digesting this video, while I'm drinking my second cup of coffee, crazed out of my mind, doing my 15th take. Going a little wild over here. And this difference manifests in artists and art critics. There's that classic meme of the artist that's up till 4 a.m., burnt out of his mind, just working on his masterpiece, while the art critics are sitting over there in suits, looking at the piece of art and admiring or critiquing the little details. And this difference, it manifests starkly in philosophers as well. Someone like Nietzsche was more so an artist than a philosopher, first and foremost. It's why he wrote so much in poetry, and he had a failed music career and things like this. And it manifested in this style of writing and this philosophy that was much more concerned with the enhancement of the feelings of life, the vitality of life. While someone like Schopenhauer, the opposite of Nietzsche, more of an art critic who liked to observe art, his philosophy was more so centered around the repression of the will, the repression of the instincts of life, so that one can be in more of a serene Buddhist state. So I probably botched the brief synopsis of Nietzsche and Schopenhauer, but regardless, this video is about the artist and how genius comes from an altered state of consciousness. We see this in writers like Bukowski or Hemingway, who are hunched over their little typewriters at 3 a.m., pounding out their masterpieces while drinking themselves to death on a 20-second beer. And we see it in rock stars too, who are smoking weed and doing coke all night long while they write Bohemian Rhapsody and die at 27. What is going on here? And I think Nietzsche put it really well here, is that art comes from an ecstatic state of sorts, a frenzy, a wildness in the body. By the way, this is not an endorsement for drug use and art. Although they often go together, the substance is usually just a coping mechanism. The superior man finds ways to enter into the enhanced Dionysic state free of drugs, which we're going to talk about. Forever, our ancestors and the ancients thought of art as coming from a state of near possession or total possession. The ancient Greeks, for instance, thought about art and poetry and even athletic competitions not as something that man did, but something that the gods did through man. Homer opened the Iliad, for instance, with an invocation of the Muse, the daughter of Zeus, who inspired poetry. He wrote, "Sing in me, O Muse, and through me tell the story of that man skilled in all the ways of contending." You have to understand, the classical mindset of all of our pagan ancestors was one of constant possession, and this is something we demonize today. For instance, the god Ares would possess heroes in war. Lovers were raptured by Aphrodite in lust and love. Socrates was animated by a daemon, and the Oracle of Delphi was the mouthpiece of Apollo. Similarly, in ancient Rome and Greece, genius was not something a man was, it was something that possessed man. The same thing was true of the Nordic people and the Germanic tribes. They worshipped Odin, who was this god of intuition and inspiration, and they would worship him often through frenzy. Frenzy in battle, frenzy in festivals and dance and art and sex and poetic rap battles and all sorts of expression. We see the same thing with native tribes in America and Canada, who would often have festivals of dancing all night around the fire, or would even do things like sun dancing, where they hang hooks through their pectoral muscles and endure tremendous pain in ecstatic states for extended periods of time. And all of this from these ancient cultures is showing us that frenzy was a way to commune with the gods, and it created this state of possession where art came from. This is something Nietzsche perceived radically in his stifled age. Man had lost what he termed the Dionystic, the wild losing of oneself in the act of creation or destruction or expression. You see, when Christianity took over Europe, the old gods became villains. The daemon became a demon, and man was taught to hate himself and hate the wild passions and instincts that originally moved him. And with that, passions and possession became evil in almost every circumstance, unless it was religious ardor for Christ. Nietzsche said in Twilight of the Idols, quote, "To attack the passions at their roots means to attack life at its roots. Castration of the passions is not a cure. In fact, it's evidence of profound sickness. Only the weak individual feels the need to do away with the natural human being and natural human experience entirely, while stronger types are able to go into the chaos of art, into the chaos of their passions, and learn to master them, to sublimate the deeper drives of life, as Nietzsche talked about." Nietzsche, speaking on art, said the essential feature is a feeling of increased strength and abundance, an activation of the emotional and physiological system of man. Now, I'm not saying you need to be doing drugs all night or popping Molly or carrying around skulls drenched in blood in order to enter into the Dionystic artistic state. But you do have to get good at energizing the being and getting out of your own way, or entering into the state that we call flow in the modern day. Nietzsche believed many things could help us enter into this enhanced state, such as the use and transmutation of sexual energy could create that feeling of ecstasy. But furthermore, and to quote him, "Also, the ecstasy that follows all great cravings, all strong desires, the ecstasy of feasting, contests, feats of daring, victory, and all extreme movement." Unquote. In this, we see an echo of the ancient Greek world, which was absolutely motivated by communion with the gods. It's why they loved their festivals, their Olympic games, their extreme athletic competitions, their constant warfare, their philosophical and political debates, their poetry and art and theater. They loved all things that activated the daemon within man and let man become a vehicle for the gods. The most embodied ways I've found to commune with the gods in states of flow is through dance and martial arts. Dance is one of the things I most enjoy in this life. And if you ever go to an ecstatic dance or music festival and you build this skill of dancing, where you can be totally free in your body, where you've developed mastery with the movement, all of a sudden you can let your emotions, your mind, your body, your breath merge into this beautiful trance where you're just moving to the music for hours straight at a time. And all of a sudden you enter into this frenzied, ecstatic, powerful, daring, strong state that Nietzsche often talks about. In fact, Nietzsche would produce this state through hiking through the Alps for hours at a time, like these multi-mile hikes, where he wrote books like Zarathustra and Twilight of the Idols in a mere handful of days. This ecstatic state is where the genius flows through, and as artists, as creators, our mission should be, how do we tap into those states of flow? Bruce Lee once said that martial arts is the honest expression of emotional content. And I think this is true for dance, for combat, for martial arts, for flow state activities. When you can dance as a sincere expression of the true tune of your soul, when you can go into a sparring match as a sincere expression of who you are, all of a sudden the power animates your whole body. And one thing I've learned on my journey as an artist, as a writer, as a dancer, as a martial artist, is that the muse doesn't come to those who are timid. I'm going to quote Stephen King here, who in his book On Writing, and he says, "You can approach the act of writing with nervousness, with excitement, hopefulness, or even despair. You can come to the act with your fists clenched and your eyes narrowed, ready to kick ass and take down names. You can come to it because you want a girl to marry you, or because you want to change the world. Come to it in any way but lightly." Let me say that again. You must not come lightly to the blank page. And this is true of writing, but most all acts of expression. If you really want to commune with the muse, you gotta show up to the plate and enter into that more Dionysian, emotional, enhanced state of frenzy. And currently I'm working with this client and he's talking about his process with writing a book. And whenever he gets a line or two in, the editor in his brain comes back and tries to edit it and rework what he just wrote and make it perfect right now. And I was like, brother, you're trying to write with a scalpel. It's time to hold up the magic wand and let yourself pour onto the page. Let the muse move you and write like a madman and get into that ecstatic, frenzied state. And then go back with the scalpel, go back with a knife and purify it, refine your craft. And this is the Dionysic versus Apollonian. A lot of artists are always stuck in the Apollonian, which is like, the immaculate conception, which is like thinking and editing and making into a beautiful form. But that Dionysic raw experience of life is where the magic, where the daemon, where the genius speaks. Ultimately, I think so many people in the Western world are stifled because we have lost this communion with the gods. We have lost the ability to totally get out of our own way and express ourselves with truthfulness, with sincerity, with strength, with cruelty, as Nietzsche talks about, with, divine indifference, just being yourself totally. Hey, thanks for watching Wisdom Warriors. I only had 2 wardrobe changes this video. If you want to talk to me one-on-one, there's a link in the description below to apply for a discovery call. Also, if you want to watch more on Nietzsche and the coming revolution and rise of dangerous men, you can click here for that video. Thanks for being here, Wisdom Warriors. I'll see you at the next one. Peace.